The key roles in getting a film made for me as a producer are finding a great idea, putting it together with a great talent team, and then the hardest bit, which is getting the money to bring that to the screen.
Then the crucial thing really is the creative side, choosing the director, working on the script and casting. For me, those are the sort of three key elements in terms of the producer's job.
Most importantly, we try and make it for the right money, because a lot of films can be made for different sums of money, and that we tend to go from this is what we think it's worth in the marketplace backwards rather than build upwards to what the budget's going to be.
It's a long process. A lot of films take a long time to finance, and so a lot of it's financing and then getting the key people in place, and then just hitting you kind of have a start date that you just intend to hit and just go for that.
I think in the pre-production process, you're like a ringmaster. You're trying to control all the elements. Well, not control, you're trying to help all the elements come together in the best possible way. I think the good producer, in a way, is someone who's creating and protecting the space for the other talent to do their best work.
You would always want, as a producer, to allow your director to choose certain key heads of department, certainly the director of photography, certainly their editor.
If you trust people in each department and the right HODs, and you trust them to get the right team, then you're actually just dealing with less people. So I spend a lot of time trying to make sure they're right for the project.
The process of making a film is slightly herding cats, and what you have to try and do is to make sure that everyone's heading in the same direction, and obviously that's got a lot to do with the personalities of the people who are in the key parts. So the cinematographer, the production designer, the first AD, costume designer, makeup artist, line producer. It's very important that they're all pulling in the same direction.
Well, pre-production can be anything from 10 years to 2 weeks. I think in an ideal world, official pre-production is generally about 10 weeks or 8 weeks, depending on your level of budget. But I think pre-production, pre-production, as some people call it in budgets, goes on from way before that.
Obviously, budget dictates how long you can have in prep, but I would rather have an extra week in prep with less people, and build more time into prep, because I think it pays dividends when you get to the shoot date. And the shooting days are the expensive days.
Once you're in production, I tend to work with a line producer who will be the person who day to day is running the budget, and they are obviously an absolutely crucial part of the process.
Well, the key team for me when we're in production is the actual production office. So that's myself and the line producer, production manager, production coordinator, production assistant. That's my key kind of war room team. And I think if you have a really crack team of people doing that, they're often the unsung heroes, because the rest of the production doesn't often know how good they are, but they make everything else run well.
I always get to set for breakfast with the rest of the crew, turn up at the same time, because often it's a time that you can potentially foresee a problem during the day. It's a weather forecast, or an actor's not well, or often you can be the busiest at 7 in the morning.
I like to spend as much of the day on set as I possibly can, because if you've done your job properly beforehand, there shouldn't be that much for you to do. But I think it's important for someone to have an overview about how things are running, whether things could be better, the overall morale. And I think a good producer should be able to add about 10% value to the budget when you're shooting, just by being there and being a good manager and being able to cajole and push and comfort and do all those things that a good manager should do.
At the start of a shoot, certainly the first week of a shoot, it's great for the producer to be there the whole time and to, so that they get to know everybody, they know all the cast and crew, but then maybe step back a little once they're happy that everything's on track and that the rushes are, looking as great as you would hope they'd look. But I think it's always important to keep in close contact, either by visiting regularly or just by speaking to people every day to make sure everything's going well.
Always be there for wrap. That's really important. Even if you go 10 minutes over, you've got to consider the crew and not just presume they're going to do it. So I'd always get there at least an hour before wrap.
Yeah, then things go wrong, or somebody gets sick, or an actor doesn't want to do what they're asked to do, or the directors are having a hissy fit, or. But a lot of that is really process. Is getting the film to the first day of principal photography. That is the heavy lift, as it were. And then as long as you stick to the script and stick to the roadmap, and the director is somebody who really knows what they're doing in terms of direction. It's kind of their movie at that point. You know, then really where we become re-engaged is in the cutting room, in the post-production process.
You can be full-time in post-production, but if you're not going to be full-time and maybe you've got to juggle it with other projects, I think you clearly need to be there at all the pivotal moments. So you need to be there in the cutting room, looking at how the edit is shaping up. And certainly by the time the director has a first cut, you need to be looking at that, giving notes.
I find that the longer I've been doing this, that I think it's better as a producer to see a cut of a film later in the process. I think if you see it early on and you see it too many times, you lose objective judgment, and you can contribute less to the process.
I find post the hardest because it's often not many of you left. Most of the crew and support that you've got have gone. There is the fear of finishing and letting it out to the outside world. There is a fear there. How is it going to be perceived? Will people like it? Will people want to pay the money and go and see it?
Your key ally as a producer is really the post-production supervisor, who in a sense takes over where the line producer leaves off in terms of managing the post-production budget and also making sure that you're delivering the things you need to deliver on time and on budget.
I think the best qualities of a good producer are patience, endless amount of patience, but actually even more important, persistence. I think you've got to keep on keeping on, because if you're, in a way, you're the last line of defense. If you don't believe that you can do it, nobody else will.
I think you need to be tenacious because you hear no more often than you hear yes, by a factor of probably 100 to 1.
I used to be a location manager, which gave me a great privilege to be in the car with directors, and I was always amazed at, you know, I worked with good producers, and I thought were really good producers during that time, and some not so good. And I guess you sort of realise that I always felt that the directors, a lot of times their vision was taken away from them by, you know, and it became a committee, and often they turned out to not be the great films.
The best producers are producers who vanish into the background and allow the director and the writer and the actors to be the people who are in the limelight, who are getting the glory, and whose work is really on show. Your work as a producer is largely speaking in the background.
You have to have a sense of humour. You have to have a hearty sense of cynicism, because you know, you come across all sorts of different people in this industry, and it comes back to tenacity really, because you're going to get pushed down quite a few times, and if you can't bounce up and pretend it never happened, then you're probably in the wrong game.